Sarah's parents are excited to meet her new boyfriend. This is the first time the 28-year-old has brought a man to meet her parents. Her mother slaved over a hot stove all day while the father cleaned the house and cut the grass. They both wore their best clothes and waited for Sarah. At 8 p.m., they hear that ring. They open the door, and Sarah is there, standing next to a huge man full of tattoos and a face that looks like it has been in every possible fight, with scars appling crossing his face. He looks like he beats people for a living. After some hesitant pleasantries, the shocked parents take Sarah to the kitchen. "What the heck, Sarah?" asked her mother. "Why would you date a guy like that? He looks like a thug." "You've got him all wrong," said Sarah, irritated. "He's an incredibly nice and charitable guy." "What makes you say that?" asked her father. "Well, just this month, he spent 200 hours serving his community." Our couple was delighted when finally their long wait to adopt a baby. The adoption center called and told them they had a wonderful Japanese baby boy, and the couple took him without hesitation. On the way home from the adoption center, they stopped by the local college so they each could enroll in night courses. After they filled out the form, the registration clerk inquired, "Whatever possessed you to study Japanese?" The couple said proudly, "We just adopted a Japanese baby, and in a year or so, he'll start to talk. We just want to be able to understand him." Donald Trump walks into a bar, but he is invisible. After attracting the bartender's attention, the bartender says, "I'll bite." "Why are you invisible?" Trump says, "Well, I found a bottle on the beach, and then I rubbed it. And then, importantly, a genie came out. The genie said I could have 3 wishes. For my first wish, I said, let me say this, and this is profoundly important. I want Melania to marry me, love her, and I think America will love her too." That wish was granted. For my second wish, I said, like all patriotic Americans, I am deeply patriotic, and I want to be president of the United States so I can serve my country. That wish was granted too. And then for my third wish, I started by saying, let me be clear. Gorilla dies of old age at a zoo right before the zoo opens. It is the only gorilla at the zoo since they are not very profitable. However, the gorilla is their most popular attraction by far, and they can't afford to go a day without it. So the zoo owner asks one of his workers to wear a gorilla suit they have in storage for an extra $100 a day if he will go in the gorilla cage and pretend to be the gorilla until the zoo can afford a new one. Quickly, the new gorilla becomes the most popular craze at the zoo. People from all over are coming to see the human-like gorilla. About a month in, the craze has started to wear off. So, to your people's attention back, he decides to climb over his enclosure and hang from the net ceiling above the lion's den next to him. A large crowd of people gather watching the spectacle in awe and terror. Suddenly, the man loses his grip and falls to the floor of the lion's den. The man starts screaming, "Help! Help!" Suddenly, a lion pounces him from behind and whispers in his ear, "Shut the fuck up right now, or you're going to get us both fired." An 18-year-old Italian girl tells her mom that she has missed her period for 2 months. Very worried, the mother goes to the drugstore and buys a pregnancy kit. The test result shows that the girl is pregnant. Shouting, cursing, crying. The mother says, "Who was the pig that did this to you? I want to know." The girl picks up the phone and makes a call. Half an hour later, a Ferrari stops in front of their house. A mature, distinguished man with gray hair and impeccably dressed in an Armani suit steps out of the Ferrari and enters the house. He sits in the living room with the father, mother, and the girl and tells them, "Good morning, your daughter has informed me of the problem. I can't marry her because of my personal family situation, but I'll take charge. I will pay all costs and provide for your daughter for the rest of her life. Additionally, if a girl is born, I will bequeath a Ferrari, a beach house, 2 retail stores, a townhouse, a beachfront villa, and a $2 million bank account. If a boy is born, my legacy will be a couple of factories and a $4 million bank account. If twins, they will receive a factory and $2 million each." Yeah. However, if there's a miscarriage, what do you suggest I do? At this point, the father, who had remained silent, places a hand firmly on the man's shoulder and tells him, "You fuck her again, and my wife too." A boy named Fred came home from university in tears. "Mom, am I adopted?" "Of course not," replied his mother. "Why would you think such a thing?" Fred showed her his genealogy DNA test results, no match for any of his relatives and strong matches for a family who lived the other side of the city. His mother called her husband, "Honey, Fred has done a DNA test, and I don't know how to say this. He may not be our son." "Well, obviously," he replied. Even more confused, the mother asks, "What do you mean?" "It was your idea in the first place," her husband continued. "You remember that first night in hospital when the baby did nothing but scream and cry and scream and cry. On and on, and you asked me to change him." "Well, I did exactly what you said. I picked a good one. I reckon ever so proud, Fred." A man is sitting in a cafe when suddenly someone he knows comes running to him in panic, shouting, "Quick, your wife is cheating on you with your best friend in the forest." The man runs out of the cafe angry and furious to see for himself and returns after a short while and sits back down on his chair. The people in the cafe and the guy that told him are confused and ask what happened. The man says this son of a bitch was just exaggerating. Firstly, it was just a couple of trees. He made it out like it was a forest. Secondly, the best friend, he says, it turns out I don't even know the guy. Little Johnny was told by his friends that adults have a deep, dark secret and can be easily manipulated. Johnny decides to test it. He comes home, goes up to his mother and says, "Mom, I know everything." So the mom shoots him and gives him $10. "Just don't tell Dad," she says. Little Johnny thinks, hey, it's working. An hour later, the dad comes home from work. Johnny goes up to him and says, "Dad, I know everything." And the dad gives Johnny $100. Don't tell Mom, he says. Just then, the mailman knocks on the door, and Johnny opens it and says, "I know everything, mister." The mailman drops all his mail. His eyes tear up, and he says, "Well then, Johnny, come give Daddy a hug." Two Canadians die and end up in hell. Satan decides to pay them a visit, so he walks into their room and sees them talking and laughing. Confused, he asks them why they're happy. They tell him, "Well, we're so sick of the cold where we're from, and this place is nice and toasty." Satan, annoyed, storms away and goes to Hell's boiler room, where he turns up the temperature. He goes back to the Canadians' room along the way, being begged by all sorts of people to put the heating back down. He enters the room to see the Canadians having a barbecue. Furiously, he asks them what they're doing. "Well, we can't pass up this wonderful weather without getting out the barbecue." Satan realizes he's been doing the wrong thing. He goes to the boiler room and turns it down until it's at a colder temperature than ever seen on Earth. He knows he's won now. So he goes back to the Canadians' room, only to see them jumping up and down in excitement. He shouts at them in fury, "Why are you still happy?" They look at him and shout at the same time. Hell froze over. That means the Leafs won.